It's Monday once again, and we are live on the tracker on City TV. It's been an absolute roller coaster of a year, and today we'll attempt to make sense of everything that has happened this year, from local football starting and truncating and then starting again due to COVID-19, from the circus that surrounded Mohamed Kudus and Thomas Partey before their eventual moves to Ajax and also Arsenal Football Club. Andre Ayew putting up stellar performance after stellar performance, leading Swansea to the cusp of Premier League promotion and then failing somewhat just at the end. We'll be talking about all that. We'll talk about Bernard Lippert, the GFA's technical director, and also the technical directorate itself that has gone through some restructuring. We'll talk about home-based football. We'll take it from Colts football, from the red pitches all the way to the complications of astro pitches, which are springing up all over the country. So it's a loaded show today, and I have the perfect person here to help us to dissect all the issues. We'll take a quick break, and when we come back, tracker here on City TV, my guest today for the show is Faisal Chibsah. He is a youth development coach with Philadelphia Union and also the assistant coach of the University of Delaware soccer team. Faisal, it's good to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Nice. Let's begin by talking about a few general things. A few things have happened. I just want to acknowledge them before we go on.
Yep.
Jonathan Mensah and Harrison Affo have emerged the winners of the MLS Cup. It's the first time a Ghanaian has captained the side to that. Just brief comments on that before we go.
I'm excited, and for somebody who works and lives in the United States and following the MLS, I think this is great for our country and the league itself. Excited to see three black stars in there, Jonah, Harrison, and then Emmanuel Boateng coming victorious from the league. So I think the league has come a long way. Initially, if you mention MLS, some people frown upon it, but now I think we've come along. We've developed at a stage where you can see it's attracting most of the top players in the league. So excited for the boys, and looking forward to the MLS moving on to the next level in competition out there.
Nice one. Now, I'm not going to let you play a guessing game. Look at him right. Look at him well. Look at him well. I'm sure you can tell a resemblance. I'm not going to lead you in the dark. Faisal Chibsah is the younger brother of Yusuf Chibsah. Now, I'm making this known because I want to know how come you also chose the path of football. Not necessarily the playing part, but you look to be more involved in management, development of the game and whatnot. How did you come across that path?
Well, I would say, growing up watching my brother do it.
Did you grow up in Ghana too?
Yeah, okay. I grew up here. I played my coast football here.
Oh, you played some coast football as well?
I went to Prempeh College. I played in the Milo games. I did all that. So I enjoyed it when I was here. And then I was fortunate enough, received a scholarship to go to US and study and play. Okay. So I would say that was, my destiny that took me there. And like I said, watching my brother, I also wanted to follow his footsteps. I wanted to play. I wanted to, I saw everything in the national team, the Kotoko, King Faisal. It was just beautiful to watch. So I wanted to do the same. But life has got its own ways for you. When I graduated, I still wanted to play. I did a few rounds in Sweden here and there, but I kind of felt that I had to go to a different direction. Again, family and stuff kind of kicked in. So I saw the passion. I didn't want to be a coach. I didn't know I was going to be a coach, to be fair. But I started as a volunteer, and I realized this is where the passion is for me as an educator. So I kind of, just followed the pathway, and now I'm here. So
wow, that's interesting. It's talking about starting from a volunteer. Now you are assistant coach for the University of Delaware and also youth development coach for Philadelphia Union. Just tell me a quick bit about what that's like quickly with the University of Delaware team. What's your annual schedule or daily schedule or daily routine, even like as an assistant coach?
So for us, under the NCAA, which is the organization that puts together the college game, it's more student-driven than athlete. So our season goes from August to somewhere middle of November. So it's very short for a college athlete. So once I'm done with Delaware, with my duties at Delaware, then I resume my youth development role with the Philadelphia Union, and also do some scouts for them as well. So it kind of works out perfectly for me going from one season to the other over there.
Just a quick one. So for a talented young man who plays in, say, the high school system in Ghana.
Yeah.
What's the pathway to a league like, say, the MLS, in case they want to play football in the United States? What's the pathway to that sort of destination?
I'm happy you've brought that up, because we've had tons of Ghanaian players come through that system. Ones that are recruited from here to the United States. I was one of them. Myself, Patrick Nyako, Sama Pia, a few others.
Ruben Ayana was
Ruben
here.
Ayana
He was part of that.
Boston College, that's right. So it really is another pathway to get into the pro level. I think the United States has done a good job in emphasizing on not putting all their eggs in one basket as in sports, which, again, for here, it's a problem that we do here. So it's another way of getting involved in the game, but at the same time not losing the academic side of it. So the education is very, very important. You have to take the SATs, you have to graduate. And as a matter of fact, for you to compete at that level, you have to be a student first. So that means you have to pass schools and get better grades before you get accepted. And once if you're there, you still have to keep a GPA to be able to apply. So for me, I think it's a system that if other federations or countries adapt to that, can become an avenue for players to move on to the professional level. And of course, we have the draft as well at the end of every year. So it's another avenue for players to get into, at the same time not losing your academic background. So
Sounds good. First item on our list today is basically the lightest item on our list. I'm talking about the top 3 Ghanaian performers this year. Not top 3 players. Let me not say performance, because I picked my lot based on not just performance on the pitch, based on marketing ability, based on hype, based on future value for their teams, a lot of things. And I came up with 3 names. I came up with 3 names for the top players for 2020 for Ghana. My picks are Kudus Mohammed, Andrea Yu, and Thomas Partey. Like I said, this is not a performance solely based list. This is based on everything else. Global recognition this year, form in terms of marketability, everything. So these are my 3 players for this year, my top performers for this year. And they were all named in the Black Star squad at various points this year. We'll get to the national team in depth. But Faisal, let me take your picks on who you would place your hand on for Ghanaian Players of the Year.
Of the year.
Yeah, your own category, your own categorization. It doesn't have to be anything specific.
Yeah, COVID and everything. It's a tough one. It's a tough one. I was excited about the Kudus signing.
Okay.
I thought it made sense for him, young player, getting into the right environment, the best place to develop a young talent. Obviously, you can overlook that. So I was really excited for him to move on. But then obviously injuries kicked in, and all of a sudden, he's going back to start from ground zero again. So that didn't work out as we had wished. Same thing for Thomas. And again, most people know I'm an Arsenal fan, so I'm going to try.
You didn't say it, I was going to say it.
I'm not going to be biased here, but same thing. Started well when he arrived. Had a brilliant game against United.
Yeah.
And then right away you could tell Arteta was trying to build the team around him, giving him more freedom and flexibility to be himself. And then, unfortunately, injury kicked in again, and everything kind of slowed down for him. So if you look at the stew, then you would say Andrea Yu is the only one that's been consistent. From last year, he's carried on to this year, scoring goals, pretty much holding Swansea to the next level. So if you put all that together, then you would say, based on consistency-wise, Andrea Yu would be the player to pick.
I definitely side with you on that one. Let me just take you back to Thomas for a bit. Now, there's a lot happening with Arsenal now. Team not creating chances. Penalties being elected as goals of the month. It's been really hard to watch generally. When you watch Thomas and his skill set and what was being done with him before injury struck, how do you see him eventually filling out his role at Arsenal?
I think he's going to get more of an attacking role compared to what he did at Atleti, more of a defensive role. I think we haven't seen that side of Thomas. Atleti was more of defensive. He was a guy shielding the back four. He could smell danger. He could get rid of it. He could pass. He could dribble. He could progress the ball forward. And that's what I think Arteta is going to use him for. Now that Arsenal lacks that one creative player in the lineup here, so that also must come with a partner that would sit down for him to allow him to be that expressive. We did see against United that El Nene kind of fit in that well. I was hoping that would continue for a while so we could see if it's the right mix or not. But again, COVID kicked in. I mean, injury happened. El Nene himself got affected by COVID. So really, Arsenal is struggling. They're not in the best place, to be fair. And I think, Arteta has got some work to do on the field and off the field as well, because teams didn't start well for him with the Zoe situation, how it was handled, player being left out. And for me as a player, if I see my fellow player being handled in that situation, I kind of have to take a second look at myself and say, this may happen to me. So right away, I think you begin to lose the group a bit and the respect from the players. I think that's been the problem. Even when Arsenal was playing, it's always Ozil, where he's come in, what happened, and to come out and say this is a footballing reason, meanwhile you were losing in that way, it doesn't add up at all. So I feel sorry for Arteta. Started good, kind of mismanaged. Should have started with the players, but then went with the management, and now he's been hung up to dry. So
looks like a dead man walking
really,
to me now.
It's on him.
Well, let's zone into the national team conversation. And when we talk about the national team, let's start off from the head coach. So this year, a new head coach took over. Agenda is the same. Last AFCON wasn't too good. So the agenda is to qualify the team for the AFCON and eventually qualify the team for the World Cup. But there's been a lot of controversy since Ike Akondo took the job, especially following his first round of selections that came out. And also, some people have questioned his competence based on how Ghana were thumped in his first friendly match. First and foremost, what have you made of Akondo's handling of the head coaching job, both issues on the pitch and then off the pitch as well?
It's a difficult job, and I've had the privilege of speaking to him since he was announced as the coach. And I think for Ghanaians, we have to be, we have to take a step back a bit and look at the whole environment of our national team. I think it's very important. I think if you bring in the best coach into the wrong environment, there's no way he's going to succeed. Vice versa. And if you look at what's surrounding our national teams right now, it needs a whole restructuring. Siki is not going to do it alone. He needs help. He needs support from Ghanaians. He needs the right structures and stuff around him. I think he's understaffed, if you ask me. I think he needs more. I think the environment itself.
When you say understaffed, let me hold you there. What role do you think possibly needs to be filled that is essential to how the team performs that we currently don't have?
Okay. I think he's got one assistant.
Okay.
I think he needs more than one. Most countries
it's a practice that I'm realizing, it's a trend I'm realizing is growing now. Teams have, previously teams would have one assistant coach and that's it. Now teams could have 5, 6 first team coaches.
And even, specializing in areas. Different, like Liverpool just had a throwing coach. Never in my dreams thought there was going to be a throwing coach. But here we are. Now we have individual coaches that are coaching special positions on the field. You have in-possession coach that only focuses on the attacking side of the game. And then you have an out-of-possession coach who only focuses on the defensive side of the game. So let's talk of analyst as well. And then you have your support staff, the dietitians, the sports psych and all those areas that needs to be filled. It's all part of the game. As well. That's the modern game. And unfortunately, I think we are not there yet. All that stuff comes with cost as well. So we got to take a look into that. So he's really doing his best. But I think the environment, the structure with the new TD coming in, hopefully we can come together and agree on, a DNA or a philosophy that would, trickle down all the way to our youth teams. So that's where I think we are at the moment. And if you look at the national team job, you're lucky, if you get 3 days of training. You really don't. So you really have to rely on, again, sometimes, video conferences and stuff like that to make up with the lost time in person. So I don't know if Guinea is available to him or not, but I would take a careful look into the structures and environments that we have set up now before we even talk about, kicking the ball and systems and stuff. So we've got to work, tons of work to do.
When you talk about environments, are you basically talking just about what we don't have in terms of personnel that we don't have? Or are you talking again about what sort of atmosphere perhaps players travel into when they come down? What sort of hotel atmosphere they have when they are not playing the game? What exactly do you mean by creating the right atmosphere?
It's all part of it, and I would start with our developmental teams from the U15s, the U17s, the U20s, 23s, all the way up to the senior team, which is the national team. Again, is there a clear pathway from the lowest all the way to the top? I don't think we have it yet, and that's part of the environment.
Yeah.
A national philosophy that we all adhere to, I don't think we have it. What sort of players do we need to play a specific style or system in terms of building player profiles and all that? We have to build all that. And all that goes into the environment, talent identification, scouting, coaching education, all that kind of stuff. How is our senior teams working with our Premier League teams? Yeah, I don't think there is some sort of cohesion exactly. So all that goes into the environment that I'm talking about here. But that's really much where I think we have to get right first. And then once we are able to get to that point, now we can see the senior team do well. And again, you can bring in the best coaches. If it's not set up right, then I don't think we can succeed.
Well, that just takes me to my next point, because following Ghana's last AFCON exit, the least we expected to do was a semi-final, because we'd been to a semi-final at least 5 times on the bounce. And then we were giving an awakening, exited at a round of 16. A lot of people had various opinions on why the team exited. Some placed the blame at the doorstep of the coach. Some said that there were just too many distractions in camp. Some said the players were just not good enough compared to our other counterparts. Let me start you off on the squad. Do you think that we have enough quality as a national team to compete with the best on the continent?
That's a tough question. Do we have enough quality? I think we have a lot of individual technical players. When you say quality, quality comes with intelligence.
Okay.
And if you look at football actions, you have to pursue first, so you have to collect information, you have to make a decision, and then you have to execute.
Yeah.
I think for the most part, we have players that are technically gifted to execute, but the decision that they have to make before they execute is where I think we are missing the most part. And you have to teach that, and you have to teach that from the lower ages all the way to the top.
And that's a problem.
That is the problem. That is the problem. And football is intelligence. Football is not all technical. You can train technique, but you have to train intelligence as well, and understanding of space and player movement and all that kind of stuff. We have to teach that, and that's where I think, in the country as a whole, we lack the most when it comes to decision making and understanding as to why we do certain things. I was watching some of the Premier League games, and sometimes you ask why you take a touch, and sometimes it's not there. Why it's not there? Was it the right or was it the wrong one? I don't think most people, most players question themselves. They just take a touch without clearly understanding where that takes them. So to say we have the quality, maybe quality is not the word to use, because when you say quality, you have to look at everything in totality. Exactly. So we have some part, but we are missing some areas, I would say.
That's an interesting way to look at it.
Yeah.
When you look at the team itself, another issue that has been prevalent is the invitation of foreign-born Ghanaians into the squad. So in the last CK Economics, we had Tariq Fosu coming from the championship. We had Alexander Jiku also coming from the French Ligue 1. They look to have managed their early days of transition pretty well. But it doesn't happen to be the case for everybody. For instance, we spoke to Adam Lassen-Kwarase a few months ago, and he made statements like it was hard to blend into the group when he was invited. Yep. He felt close to one or two players, but he didn't feel wholly accepted by the entire group. I'm not sure how you look at this, but what are your initial thoughts on this particular discussion, getting the likes of perhaps Nketsia and Tariq Lamptey and co to say, I want to pick England or I want to pick Ghana over England?
So that goes back to the word I used, the environments that we are creating. This is also part of it. You know, when you're bringing in those guys into the national team, not just on the field, but we have to prepare a plan for them.
Okay. To
make it easier for them to adapt here. You know, because they are coming from a completely different environment and setup. We don't have the same here. So when you bring in people like that, first we have to get to know them on a personal basis, what makes them tick, what they like. And sometimes you got to take it off the field. Sometimes you have to take it off to the market or to the streets, you know, grab a cup of coffee, make them feel welcome to the country. And that will bring the best out of them. So we can't just invite those guys here and then straight away just push them on the field to perform. You know, there are things we have to do from our end to make them feel comfortable, to make them feel welcomed. Whether it's pitches, whether it's, you know, the language, whether it's the food, the culture, all this comes to play a role, and it goes into the word environment that I used. So when you bring in, it's like a fish. If you take a fish out of a pond and bring it out, is it going to last?
You need to provide an environment close to what it's used to.
It's the same thing, and that's the principle that goes with that. So I think I welcome that idea. I think they are part of us. They are Ghanaians, and if they want to play for us, we should welcome it. But also we should make room to make sure that when they come here, they feel welcomed and comfortable to play and perform at the best of their abilities.
Now, when it comes to the national team, is there anything that you personally are unsatisfied with? And think that, aside all the things you've spoken about, you think that for a national team, this is essential? Why aren't we doing this as a people?
I think that would be the talent identification for me. The way and manner at which we identify players to the national team. I think we have to take a second look at the process. I'm not a big fan of, you know, arriving at the field and inviting tens of thousands of kids to come show up their talent. There is no way you're going to get this right if that's the process. I think there has to be a better way. I think we can start from the district level.
Okay.
You can create, you know, district teams. Before you even get to that, you have to educate coaches. You have to educate scouts. Start with the U13s, U14s. We can use these pitches that has been built all over the country as you know, market developmental centers where you can put regional developmental coaches there, and then invite kids to train if it's twice or 3 times a month. Invite the kids. That's where you start selecting kids at the district level, and then they can move on to the regional level, and then from the regional level you can combine regions and form zones, and then from the zones you can move on to the national team pool. So that way you're giving each and every kid the opportunity to get a fair shot of playing for the national team, at the same time getting developed. So we don't have to wait for the kids to be at their best before we invite them. Can we catch them young, so identify some strength?
You've been able to keep an eye on them.
Exactly, and then put up an individual plan for them throughout their years until they get to 15s or 17s where they can be in the national team pool. So we have to develop rather than just looking for the ripe mangoes and, you know, plucking them. I don't think it's the way to do it. So that for me is an area that I would hope the new management in place would shift some sort of attention to, and once we get that right, now our Premier Leagues will be better, you know, our national teams will be better, and our, you know, football will be fun for Ghanaians again to love and follow.
Interesting thoughts there. So you're listening to Faisal Chibsah, just helping us break down the national team in totality. Like I said, a lot has been said about the national team this year. Is CK Akonnor the man for the job? Do we have the right crop of players? Are we going to win an AFCON with these players that we currently have. Let's take a quick break here on the tracker. When we come back, we'll round up the national team conversation, and then we'll talk a lot more technical stuff, the restructuring of our technical directorate, because we have a new technical director, we have a head of football education, as the GFA themselves have put it. So welcome back to the tracker here on City TV. We are still talking to Faisal Chibsah. He's a youth development coach with Philadelphia Union's Academy, and also the assistant coach for the University of Delaware soccer team. Faisal, let's round up the national team discussion. First off, do you think that we have a squad and a system in place to win the next AFCON? I know you've spoken a lot, but looking at what we've looked at, sometimes football people tell you that, yes, all these intricacies matter, but looking at Ghana, we should be able to win the AFCON. Do you think we have a squad that can win the next AFCON?
Currently, I would say no. I don't think we do. Again, I could be wrong here, but if you look at the team that played in the last AFCON, how many are currently in the setup now? I don't think it's a lot.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of new faces, and that's a problem. You know, for me, I think for you to prepare a winning team, especially at the national team level, when you don't have a lot of time to train, it has to be a team that stayed together consistently for a while. That for me is the key. That's where
I was just about to go to that, but you literally just answered my question.
That's what you need. You know, and I don't think we have, because each time we go, we come back and then we blame it on the players and say, look, this is not good. He's not bad. You off. New set comes in. Same thing. So it's almost like a try and error thing that we are doing with our players here. So at some point, we would have to stick to a group and say, okay, this is what is going to take us to the next AFCON title. And then let's stick with that and keep pushing and keep developing until we get there. But if we're going to keep, you know,
chopping and changing like we
do, I don't think we are preparing ourselves to win the trophy. So, yeah.
Let me read a message that's just come through. This one here is from Mark from Next Generation IT inside Okwankwe North. He says, I believe Partey will pick up and be the best together with Oba and Laka. The foreign-based players will help us if we are able to market or be hospitable enough to them. Then they can turn into ambassadors for the country itself. The whole Boateng situation is at the World Cup also helped raise Ghana's confidence level when playing at the World Cup, and we should not downplay the good that it can do for us. So he's definitely talking about Aubameyang and Lacazette and Partey, and then talking about bringing in foreign-based players into our setup. Now, this takes me to restructuring the technical directorate of our football. First question I've always wanted to ask you this. Is it true that you applied for that particular job and that you were apparently turned down because some said you were too young?
Yes, I applied. And I was privileged to be interviewed as well. I appreciate the FA on that. I don't know if I was turned down because I was too young. I probably wasn't good enough in my interview, who knows? But no, it was a huge experience for me. Honestly, when I applied, I wasn't even expecting to get a call back, honestly. But somehow, you know, I got a call back and I got an interview. And I've been in touch with the FA since then. So it's been a wonderful experience for me. I've learned a lot, you know, and I want to thank the FA and say, look, you know, I appreciate the opportunity to speak, and you know, somehow I got considered. So that for me is a plus. But I don't want to believe that I got turned down because I'm too young. I don't want to believe that.
But I mean, clearly on the competence side, you knew you could do the job. That's why you are throwing your hat in.
I knew I could do it. I was going to need help for sure. And if I looked at my background, working until I got here, I've always worked in different departments. Forms part of the directorate. I've worked in social media, I've worked in marketing, I've worked in youth development, I've worked in the professional phase, I've worked in talent identification. So I kind of have the experiences in all these departments, exactly what you would need at the directorate. So I just wanted to throw my name in the hat and see, you know, where that takes me. So I think it's helped me, honestly.
When you think about restructuring Ghana's football, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
Education. And that comes with coaches, players, fans, media, everybody, administrators. That for me would be number one. That would be the starting point for me.
Where would you start that from in terms of the work itself? Would you begin off by, let's say, having structures that will train more coaches, have more seminars for journalists, introduce? Where exactly does it start for you?
So part of what I included when I interviewed for the job, I'm not going to talk about the job, but just this part only, was to kind of form an alliance with a university here in the country. And then you can call it GFA School of Administration and Management, specifically for our game.
Okay.
So where you can again teach coaching, you can teach administration, you can teach refereeing, you can teach everything that's that's part of the game, because we have a unique sport, and without education, I don't think we can grow to the top. So that was going to be a starting point for me. And again, I'm not saying it should be the starting point for these guys, because there are several ways of doing things. But that would be for me, and then slowly prepare that next generation that would be taking this role, make sure they're well equipped and well resourced to serve in football. And then after that, you would look at what we have at the district and regional level. For me, that's where I think majority of football is being played. And unfortunately, that's not where the attention is. The attention rather is at the top, the Premier Leagues and the national teams. But we have to take a serious look at what goes on at district and football level and the regional level. And if we're able to get that foundation right, now we can build on to the top.
Now, talking about the restructuring process itself, you've spoken about perhaps attaching oneself to an educational institution. One of the talks down here is about getting a football philosophy. I've heard about it for close to a decade now. I'm not sure if I quite believe in it anymore, because why? I haven't seen it ever since I started watching football consciously. It's been called agro. I don't know what it is. I don't know its characteristics. I'm not sure I can identify it if I see it. How do we go about that? I mean, everybody's paid lip service to it, but how do we go about injecting our football with the national DNA?
Yeah, it's funny you said that, because I agree with you. Same thing. I've had the name agro, but I don't know what that agro DNA is. I really don't. I've asked around if there are tapes and stuff that we could look at, but it doesn't seem to be any evidence out there. But I've had the name, all right. And for us to develop a philosophy, I think it starts from the culture, who we are as a country, what kind of players we have, the values and standards that are important to us. That's the foundation, and then based on that, the kind of players we have, whether it's technical players, whether it's big, strong, fast, you develop your philosophy based on that. It has to be specifically for us and the one that suits the Ghanaian player. So once you develop that philosophy, now you have to come up with a system that kind of suits it. Again, not so much of a system guy, if you ask me. Once you get the philosophy and the principles right, you should be able to do to play your preferred system and more. And then once you develop that system, you have to develop your principles of play. There's 4 phases of the game. You attack, you defend, and then you transition between the two. At each moment, you have to have a clear definition of what your team is doing. And once you do that principles, now you develop your position-specific profiles. So in every position in that system or in that principle, you have to have what kind of players that you think would suit that. And everybody can play for Pep Guardiola. Not everybody can play for Klopp. But they are brilliant, wonderful players. But if you switch that environment, they're completely different. We've seen it numerous times. So we have to create that position-specific profiles. And then once we've done that, we share that, across the whole country. The Premier Leagues, the coast teams, everybody's aware of what kind of players we are looking to develop for the national team. And then right from the foundation phase, we'll start developing those players, whether it's, 1v1 players that can dominate, those situations on the wings or in the middle of the pitch. We have to have that clear definition and plan, and then build those profiles and start working our way all the way to the top. So that way we know if a player is coming from the youth ranks, he's going to fit in perfectly into the U20s or the 23s as well. So that for me, I think would be the steps to be taken for us to arrive at that national DNA or that global that we've been talking about.
Now, there's always something I've wanted to ask, and since you are involved in the development side of the game, I'm sure you'll be the right person to speak to this. I've realized that down here we have, I don't know if it's a preference, but we have more defensive midfield, combative type midfielders than creative midfielders with flamboyance. Now, my problem is we tend to have a national team setup or setups where you could go to the under 23s, the national team, the under 17, the under 20s, where we play football matches and we have 3 midfielders of a similar mode, similar characteristics, all playing in the middle. And then you find guys like a Clifford Abuaje or Kamal Dean from Northern. Those guys can't seem to make it into the mix. What could be the explanation for this?
So the game has evolved. And now if you look at teams defend very narrow and tight. So now there's a need for more creative players to break down those units and pressures. If you define a Messi special player, makes things happen. But the problem here is, if you want a creative player, you have to teach and encourage from infancy. And if you look at, if you go to most game centers here and kids are playing, the 1 or 2 creative players that you see on the field is probably getting yelled at, pass the ball, don't dribble, you're doing too much. And that takes away that creative side of the player.
Isn't that football generally now? I feel like systems are killing individual abilities now.
I don't think so. I think it's the why behind what they do is what people don't understand, and just like I mentioned earlier on with the players, they also need to understand where, when, and why, and how to do certain things. If you want to get creative, then you have to get in the position of the field where you think, okay, I can take risk in these areas. You can't just do it everywhere on the pitch. That's going to end up a disaster. So instead of discouraging players from getting creative, why don't we just teach them when and why they can get creative and where they can, play safe and not take risk. So that comes with coaching. You can't really take all that away from the player. If it's the DNA, that's what it is. It's tough to kind of, and that's coaching. Knowing when to step in and correct, and then knowing when to just sit back and let creativity, take control. That's the coaching. That's what coaching really is. And that's where I think, for the most part, we are missing as educators and coaches of the game. And we are all guilty of it. Sometimes when the pressure is on, you need to win, and the fans are barking and screaming at you. Sometimes you forget all this and you make wrong decisions. But for the most part, we have to sit back and look at ourselves and say, this is what the game is about. This is what coaching is about. So we'll do a good job in that. But creative players are needed. We have to encourage them, but we have to teach them when and where and why they can do, get creative, and where to take risk and play safe on the field.
Talk to me a little bit about astroturfs, because there's been some controversy with that as well. Now, they are springing up everywhere in this country.
I can see that,
Literally everywhere. There's the debate that astroturfs are not necessarily the best for a player's health. Some have cited the heat from the turf itself. Some have spoken about long-term knee damage and stuff like that. From where you stand, what's your opinion on astroturfs and their contribution to the development of the game?
So there are different types of astroturfs. there are ones that really look like natural grass.
Yeah.
That if you step on, you wouldn't even feel it.
You wouldn't notice the
astroturf.
difference.
Exactly. And then there were ones that are hard. That again.
Have you played on any of the astroturfs around?
I've tried both. Yeah.
Okay. So you've actually felt both.
I have, and even in our training complex back in Delaware, we have two. We have a natural grass training pitch, and then we have our game field, and then we have a astroturf practice field. Some teams in our conference play on the astroturf, so for us it's important that we train on astroturf before we play on that. But like I mentioned earlier on, there are different types. Okay. The hard ones, obviously, and I agree that it kind of not suitable for players and all that. Yeah. But if you can invest in the right ones, why not? Obviously the maintenance part is what it's beneficial for countries that can keep up with the grass. Yeah. It's expensive to do that, so I can understand that argument as well. But if you're going to invest in an astroturf, then invest in a safer one, so that way again your players will play longer, injury prevention and all that kind of stuff. So the types is what makes the difference.
Let's talk about coach football versus academy football, just to round off the discussion on restructuring the technical directorate. Now, this is a debate for me because if you look at Ghana, for instance, all our prominent players didn't make it out of the academy system.
Yep.
Abedi Pele, Michael Essien, Suleiman Tari. You can talk about all the big guns. And then there's the modern crop of players, Majid Waris, David Akam, Majid Ashimeru. I can think about a couple of them. Those are not superstars, but those are guys that have come out of our academy. There's the debate about whether we should abolish Colts football for the academy system entirely, or we should keep Colts football and equip it to some extent while also encouraging the academy system. What do you think?
I think the game has evolved, and yes, back then Colts football was the it, and it provided quality players for us. But the game has evolved. You can't use that anymore. It's like back in the days when we used to go to war with the bow and arrow. If you take that now, people are coming with bazookas. You last a minute. So we have to change and evolve as well. Coast football as a place in the developmental pathway. I don't think we should abolish it altogether, but we have to also move to a much more competitive youth league. And if you look at, again, most of our coaches in the coast football, not most of them are, excuse me to say, educated about the game. So again, there need to be some sort of education there as well. But I really do agree that we need a higher level youth competition to kind of prepare our players for the international stage. The game has evolved dramatically here, and we can't just rely on coast football. We can make it better. If you ask me, I would send coast football, merge it with the Milo games that we play. You can work with the Ministry of Youth and Education and Ministry of Youth and Sports and come up with whether it's transportation, whether it's pitches, whether it's equipment. The GFA can provide that technical know-how to the coaches, and then together we can form a youth structure that everybody can benefit from. And again, it's not just football that we are looking at. We're looking at whole life skills in general. Football is just more than a game here. So I think we should keep the coast football, but I also think we should try and get to a stage where we can create a much more competitive youth football league, whether it's the Academy League, GFA League, whatever you can call it, but it has to be much more structured and professional than just coast football.
Talk to me about home-based football. You've been to a couple of league games since you've been down here. What have you made of the local game? Actually, not watching from your phone app, but actually being down there on the pitch itself. What have been your impressions?
It's a tough one, honestly. I think, and to be fair, look, I think the quality has been poor. It may be too early to say, but the few that I've seen here, I think our game in general it's a little bit behind, and we really have to invest in all areas, whether it's education, whether it's infrastructure, refereeing. Last night I watched the game. Hasselfolk and
Dreams FC.
Dreams FC, and I thought the referee stole the show. Every minute there was a whistle, and maybe that was it. But I think in all those areas we have to invest in as well. But we are really behind. I wouldn't even go compare this to Europe, even just our neighbors.
Just African,
exactly, in the Tunisia and Egypt, all those areas. I think we are behind. I
mean, what's offered you the biggest shock value among all the things? I mean, you've spoken generally about how you've been disappointed by what you've seen, but what shocked you the most? I mean, in terms of, wow, I thought at least this would be on this level, but it isn't.
It's structure from the coaching perspective, just basic organizational structure of teams. You know, you defend together, you attack together, you close out the gaps and the units without even kicking the ball. I think, you know, just as the basics of the game. You know, you defend together as a unit, you move, you slide, that kind of stuff. It's not there. You know, teams attack and then the back line is like 40, 50 yards in between. There's so much gaps and spaces. That for me, I was shocked to see that. And then you know, on the pitch itself, when it comes to the players, it's just the decision making. Sometimes really it's been poor. The technique is there. You know, they make the best, I mean, the poor decisions, but somehow they manage the technique to get it right. So we have one aspect. We just have to keep improving on the other side, which is the decision making. And mostly it's just awareness and recognition of where you are on the pitch and understanding of space and the game itself. I think it's where the players are lacking the most.
Talk to me about VO or view. It's created some friction down here. Teams wanting to use it for the benefit of their own education and their own development. As to the GFA saying, no, you need to take our footage. Our footage is good enough. That should give you what you want. What did you make of that debate, first of all? And what do you think the way forward should be for us?
If you look at a modern game now, I don't think coaches or players can do it without the use of technology. And again, you know, some people say yes to it, some people say no. But for that to give you a different perspective of the game, you know, different set of eyes, with much more facts, because you collect data from the video and all that, I think it helps. Obviously, it doesn't tell the whole picture of the game, but at least it's information being given to you. So at the end, you can make your own informed decision at the end. But the whole view and you know, that happened with the FA and some teams. In the beginning, I was kind of surprised when you know, even teams have to pay to video their own games. I think we have to take a second look at that, and instead encourage more teams to actually videotape their games, and even agree to video share. You know, among the clubs. If all 18 clubs say, look, we're gonna agree that every home team should video their games and share with the other clubs. To improve video analysis, to improve the players, to improve the coaches as well, and the media as well. So what can we do that? Because at the end, I think everybody is going to benefit from this. But if we really want to take football to the next level, we have to include technology. We have to include the videos. We have to get more video analysts and performance analysis. And I would love to see that at the new, you know, technical directorate as well. If we can get one director in charge of performance analysis, that would kind of oversee or help the clubs get to that stage as well. I think, you know, we need that. And even for the national teams, when it comes to scouting as well, or working with players that are in abroad, we can use all this technology as well to engage them. So it's an area that we really have to shift attention to and invest more time into it, because I think it's going to make everybody better at the end.
You have any final words? Anything you want the good people of Ghana to know?
Let's bring back the love. I think we are beginning to lose it, and everybody's got a role to play. Fans, coaches, players, administrators, but we have to kind of move into that old mentality and welcome new ideas, because I
Yeah.
think it's the way forward. And if we are subscribed to that, I think we have enough, talent here that needs to be developed, and we would see our football back again as we all want it to be.
Well, I was going to read a message from Mark Mauli from Adenta that says, ask your guest about his perspective on our league structure. Well, he's already answered that. I already went into that for you. I saw into the future and I went into that. Faisal, has been amazing speaking to you here on the tracker. I can't believe we've actually gone through all these things in such a quick space of time. But hopefully sometime again when you are in town, we can bring you on and then share a few more opinions. It's been amazing having you on the show.
Thanks for having me again.
Well, you heard him there. He's broken it all down for us, right from the national team to Mohamed Kudus to Thomas Partey at Arsenal. He managed to touch on everything. I'm not even sure how we did that, but this is right, your platform to do exactly that. Check out on Ghanaian players around the globe. We might just have one more show before the close of the year. You never know. But same time, the tracker will be on City TV.